inspections of older Boeing 737 planes after cracks were found in 6 Southwest jets, including this one, which had its fuselage ruptured at 36,000 feet last week. The 737s affected by the order are on average 20 years old. Now, I want to show you, let me just explain to you what this is about. I'm going to use a balloon to demonstrate this. When a plane, let's talk about a flight cycle. That's one takeoff and one landing. When a plane takes off, this is basically what happens to the fuselage. It gets pressurized. When you land, the pressure comes out. Now, that is wearing on the structure of the plane. The Southwest plane that ruptured had nearly 40,000 cycles, 40,000 takeoffs and landings. So the FAA is ordering 737s with more than 35,000 cycles to be inspected within 5 days. 737s with 30 to 35,000 cycles, remember, cycle is a takeoff and a landing, need to be inspected within 20 days. Now, Peter Goelz is a former NTSB managing director. He joins me now from Washington. Peter, thank you for joining me. Peter, when we think about engines and equipment on airplanes, we think about flight hours. When you think about the age of things, you think about, we say that these are 20 years old, but are flight cycles more important when you're talking about the metal on a plane?
Absolutely. Flight cycles are the critical, determinant in terms of maintenance, in terms of when you've got to start checking the various components of the aircraft. Cycles are critical.
What has changed? Do we fly more flight cycles with the same number of planes, or does the average plane fly more flight cycles than they did 10 or 20 years ago?
Well, part of it is that our maintenance procedures are so good that planes are flying longer. But in this case, Boeing yesterday really stepped to the plate and said they had expected these lap joints, the overlapping areas where the skin is riveted, that they expected it to last for 60,000 cycles. They did not, and that's caused the emergency directive.
What do you make of that, though? Because this is engineering as sophisticated as it gets. Going from 60,000 cycles as the point at which you think there is stress on these joints to 30,000, cutting it in half. What's behind that? Doesn't that make you worry?
Well, I think we're in kind of new territory here. Planes are flying longer than ever. And I think Boeing, did a best case estimate when they started making the 737. They've made some adjustments to how they connect the skin. They've now gone back to the drawing boards. They were as stumped or as surprised as anyone. Yesterday, they said they just didn't see this coming.
Does the technology exist to adequately check all of these planes quickly and effectively?
Well, it does. They use something called an eddy cycle machine that does an electromagnetic scan of the skin beneath the surface. And it takes some time. It's estimated that it would take 2 trained mechanics about 6 to 8 hours to scan this area to make sure that there are no fatigue cracks there.
Okay, so some of these planes are going to be out of service for a little while. Won't take too long, but that adds some cost to the airline, plus the cost of these tests. Obviously, this is likely to become something that's more common. Are we as passengers going to absorb those costs?
Well, I think in the end, of course, the passenger always does. But I think that's an item for Boeing and the air carriers to negotiate. The key thing is that so far this is limited to a fairly small number of planes, of which, from a worldwide fleet of many thousands. So I think so far the news is good.
Peter, I used to fly a little plane. For small planes that don't get into the altitude where they need pressurization, this doesn't apply because they're not getting that stress on the fuselage.
That's right. This really affects planes that are pressurized, those that are flying above 10,000 feet. For smaller planes, there are different kinds of stresses to the frame that you need to monitor carefully.
We are looking at Boeing 737s. These are the most commonly flown planes in America, the most commonly flown commercial passenger planes. We're looking at a particular subset of them, the 300, 400, and 500 series. Should we be looking at closer flight cycle inspections on other models of Boeings and other planes in general?
Well, I think this will broaden the discussion about aging aircraft. the NTSB, the FAA, and the manufacturers have been looking at how do you monitor aging aircraft, how do you ensure that they are airworthy long into their life. And I think this will renew the debate that started really back in 1988 with the Aloha accident.
All right, Peter, thanks for letting us know about this. We appreciate your time and your very clear explanations on this. Peter Goelz is a